Well, welcome to the 8th of 8 videos looking at Chapter 1 in the Risk Management course. And what we're going to be doing during this particular video is looking at the midterm and the final exam. And so the midterm is a classical academic research paper where you're going to focus on one of the 4 risk management frameworks that are covered in the course textbook. So either the Octave Allegro model, the FAIR model, the FRAP model, or the NIST model. The material in the book is not going to be enough for you to do well on the final exam, or on the midterm, I'm sorry. So it's going to require you going out and doing some additional research, a la a classical research paper. So this is an individual assignment. It's open book, open note, open web, closed collaboration. I do check for plagiarism, so you don't want to plagiarize. Do cite your sources and where you pull material. As you submit this particular research paper, you're not going to be discussing the particular scenario that you're building for your final exam. So they're really 2 separate things. You're really just trying to prove to me, the instructor, that you understand one of these 4 risk management frameworks. Students will often ask, should it be single-spaced or double-spaced, or what font size, and so on and so forth. And I candidly don't care about any of those things. You can single-space it, you can double-space it. You can use whatever font you want in the paper. I don't care how long the paper is. It is worth 30% of your overall grade, so your effort should be commensurate with 30% of your overall grade. If you put an hour into the paper, you probably have put too little time. If you put 120 hours into the paper, you've probably put too much time. So some number in between there. And again, I hesitate if I was to say, well, it's a 20-page paper. All of you would write 20-page papers, and then some of you would get A's and some of you would get F's, because it's the quality of the material contained within. What you're trying to do is prove to me that you understand that particular framework and that you can write a classic academic research paper. All right, enough on the midterm. Let's move forward now and talk on the final exam. So the final exam is actually a pretty different thing, and it really starts at the beginning of the semester. And it's got 3 kind of different components associated with it. The first component is tied to forming a team of 4 to 5 folks and submitting a topic and at least the beginnings of a scenario. So, for example, I've had a team previously form their team of 4. They identify the names of the 4 team members, and they say, you know what, we're going to create, for the basis of our final exam, we're going to use the context of a Sherlock Holmes consulting company. So we're a consulting investigative company, and we've had a security incident within our consulting company. And we need to do a risk assessment using one of the 4 frameworks, figure out what happened, and to make appropriate adjustments. So that would be your kind of initial submission associated with the final exam. The second submission is going to be a more detailed exploration of the scenario. So you're going to submit a kind of descriptive paper explaining the scenario and explaining exactly what happened. You're not talking about the framework yet. You're just trying to build, if you will, the background. And it's a pretty extensive submission associated with this scenario submission. So I am going to help you here. This is probably about a 20-page submission. Okay? And so the 4 or 5 of you are going to get together, work together, and kind of flesh out what are the security, environment, what technology are you using, what controls are already in place, what policies do you have in place? What education, training, and awareness systems you have in place? Do you have previous audit findings? But you're just exploring that. You should have fun with this. Each of the different teams that have done this previously take this on to be creative, but to also create something that's authentic, that's fun to play with. And then the final submission is where you're going to go in and apply that framework to that scenario. And so, again, that's the kind of final submission that goes along. And here, you're going in and, again, trying to demonstrate everything you've learned in the course. You're building on this scenario to apply a framework and to show that you understand the framework and how it works. And you're trying to be as detailed as possible. Just like the midterm, you can start at any point in the semester working on this. You don't have to wait to the end of the semester to do this. If you submit it early, I will grade it, and you may resubmit it at no failure, or at no penalty. So both the midterm and the final exam can be submitted at any point during the semester, and you can resubmit with no penalty at any point in the semester. You have control over what grades you get on your midterm and your final exam. The midterm classical research paper final exam really consists of 3 parts. The first part being the email with the team formation. The second, and at least a inkling of a scenario. The second part being the scenario submission itself. And then the third part being the final submission where you're applying the framework against the scenario. All right, very good. This concludes the 8th of 8 videos covering Chapter 1. Hope you've had a good time learning about this. And then what we're going to do in the next chapter is get into business-driven risk, talk about that environment, and then get into some great additional readings, one of which is one of my favorites, looking at cultural theory and how it applies to risk management. So lots of good stuff coming forward. Again, 8th of 8 videos covering Chapter 1. Next video you see in the series will be on Chapter 2.